All right. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to VUX World. I've just got a notification through that Kane Sims is live on LinkedIn. So there you go. Welcome to another episode of the VUX World podcast. Happy for you to join me. And today I am joined with an industry and community heavyweight, you could say. Everyone who is kind of really involved in conversational AI and AI automation, customer experience in general, will know of this fella. He is responsible for putting together really the largest gathering of us, the industry enthusiasts, practitioners, and leaders that exists today, that's focusing specifically on conversational AI. It began as the Voice Summit. It's now rebranded as the Voice and AI Summit. And we're going to hear all about that story and what's in store for the event coming up in September. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please welcome Pete Erickson. Pete, welcome, my friend.
Hey, Kane, it's wonderful to be here. Thanks for that kind introduction. And I do feel like I've arrived now that I'm on live with you here on LinkedIn with the one and only Kane Sims. So thanks so much for having me on.
I can't believe we haven't done this before. It seems
I know.
strange. There's a few people. Yeah, there's a few people who kind of like, I speak to all the time, and we're really good friends, but we've never done a podcast together. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting, isn't it?
Well, I think that's the thing is we talk a lot, right? So when you have a lot of conversations, anyway, you sort of feel like you're having that podcast in it, maybe behind the scenes. But now it's kind of fun to just get out and chat with you. Not behind the scenes. We kind of talk about this market and everything that's happening. It's been such a fascinating, last 6-7 months. Here we are.
It's probably a good time to do this. I mean, we've been through lots of different kind of phases, haven't we, in this sort of industry? We've gone from when Facebook, in fact, if you want, it depends how far back you want to go, but if you go sort of like towards, the days of nuance and kind of like call center automation and all that sort of stuff, and then went through that phase, and we got into the phase of sort of like voice assistants, or maybe first Facebook Messenger releasing its APIs, and then that kind of got a load of people interested in, what was then chatbots, which is now known as conversational AI. We then had Alexa, the voice assistants, come on stream that kind of galvanized the whole community of people, which you were kind of definitely heavily involved with organizing. And then we've kind of gone through the sort of enterprise phase where businesses are starting to implement this kind of stuff, chatbots, voice assistants, things like that. And now we've kind of got to the generative AI, large language model kind of phase, which has brought a whole new stream of people into the community who are really interested in building conversational applications. So although we haven't spoke on the podcast during those other phases, now seems like more of an opportune time than ever, because the world seems to be just lit on fire by conversational AI, and everyone knows what it is now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. In 2011, when Siri first came out, we hosted an event for developers to talk about the ways that voice interaction could actually improve their applications. And we spent 2 hours hearing from developer after developer talking about how voice would actually improve the engagement with their audience. And at the time, developers were incredulous that they couldn't get API access to Siri. And it wouldn't be for many, many more years before that even started. But yeah, conversational AI, automatic speech recognition, those have been around for a long time. And you mentioned contact center modernization. But then we had the hype cycle of Alexa and Google Assistant. And I think that's I think when it really hit its peak in 2018, maybe 2019, where people were really interested in trying to figure out how voice was going to manifest itself in terms of maybe a new platform and a new market. And clearly that hype cycle passed, right? I think it passed during the pandemic, quite frankly. And then last year, my observation at Voice 22 was that the market had really kind of crystallized around, 3 big areas. And that is, custom assistance, contact center, modernization, and CX automation. So customer experience automation. Those were like the 3 big areas that people were focused on. And that was October 22. And then, of course, the big event in November, just a month after our conference, was the release of ChatGPT. And so now we're kind of in this new, I don't know if you call it a hype cycle. I think there's a lot of hype around it, but there's this shift, right? And I think the market feels like it's in this what do we do now moment, which is part hype cycle, part analyzing and understanding how is this going to change my business, and then a lot of experimentation that's happening now.
Yeah, it's I do think we are going through a hype cycle, definitely when it comes to large language models. Like
Yep.
ChatGPT was sort of like the beginnings of that. Obviously, a lot of people have been using large language models for a long time. A lot of products have been built on it. A lot of businesses and a lot of the conversational AI platforms actually have been using them for some time. Amazon Alexa's had large language models kind of under the hood for quite a long time. So it's not necessarily new. I think what's changed is obviously with ChatGPT being a customer facing application that anyone can just go and register and use. That's kind of spurred a whole new bunch of interest. And the reason why I think it's definitely a kind of hype cycle phasing is that there is the promise of it. It's a bit like when we were, back in 2017, 2016, 2018, when we were really kind of like on Alexa, and it was like Alexa is the new computing platform. Ambient computing is the way forward. And not only is it going to be kind of like a B2C thing where you're going to be able to get everything you need to get done, play music, getting recipes, setting to-do lists and timers and all that, but also a B2C thing from a brand perspective, which is the ability to engage with the companies that you need to engage with to get stuff done, all the way from sort of like getting the news read out to you from BBC down to the more kind of like life moments, like taking out insurance and moving house and all of those kind of healthcare, all that kind of stuff. The potential was always there, and we went through that
Right.
hype cycle, which is this is the answer to all of our prayers. And
Right.
it didn't obviously transpire, but it seems like we're kind of on that kind of uptrend again, which is large language models are the answers to all our prayers, and they're going to solve everybody's.
Yes. Yeah.
Which,
No. Certainly.
which can be a
Yeah. I
dangerous
think.
slowdown.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. There is that. There definitely is that hype cycle. The other hype cycle is that 100 new tools a day are being announced, on various channels, and it's kind of like you can only use one tool at a time. And I think that it's very easy to stand up an AI tool just because AI makes it easy. So I think that there's a flood of new entrants into the market. I think that we're definitely going to see a bubble where there are a lot of AI startups going after seed funding. If you were an AI startup on generative AI in the first quarter, you probably were able to get that seed funding. That's slowing down. We're seeing that as well. So, yeah, a lot of hype, but at the end of the day, you've got a lot of customers that are, that did get a head start on voice, and some of those folks are coming to the conference. Of course, all the car manufacturers have been really out front on conversational AI and custom assistants, if you will, because they have custom assistants in their car. So you see some of the announcements of, I think it was GM, or was it GM or Ford? I can't remember now, who announced ChatGPT integration into the automobile just last week. It's no wonder. And Mercedes, excuse me, so Mercedes, yeah, and Mercedes, was speaking at our conferences in 2018 and 2019. They were way out front. So thanks for the reminder on that. So the companies I think that were really far ahead, and Walmart's coming back to the conference and speaking about what they're up to. Companies that were really far ahead are in a better position to start to leverage some of these tools to even push a little further. But companies that weren't, I think that this moment really invites kind of a whole new set of analysis. So whereas a year ago you might have been evaluating some conversational AI platforms, looking at ASR solutions and trying to understand how do we get into this market. And now, with sort of all the new entrants and major funding events, Cohere raised $270 million, like this. It's sort of like who is now what do you do? Sort of have to revisit this analysis of what are we going to do now? Who are going to be our technology partners, and what's our long-term strategy? So it's a shift in the market. It's a hype cycle. I think it's adding to, maybe confusion is the right word. It's just adding to the number of options I think companies have in order to effectively move forward. And they've got their own. Many companies have their large engineering teams. Now engineering teams are in experimentation phase again, grabbing different LLMs and different tools and building and trying things out. And it's not that expensive to experiment and try. So this hype cycle, just like the last one's driving sort of this period of hyper innovation. experimentation, and I love all that stuff. And I think that's what conferences are for. Um, Tech conferences especially, is to bring people together that are involved in all this experimentation, in implementing platforms, in having success, sharing that success. And for the platforms, it's an opportunity to shine and to tell your stories and get your case studies out there. So I really look forward to this year's conference because I feel like it's going to have a lot of energy around this new market and provide some clarity, for the folks that are out there. Because I think that's one thing that may be missing right now in the AI hype cycle is a lot of clarity.
Yeah, we need to get through the hype down to the trough of disillusionment, don't we? So that we can actually start working on real tools to real solutions and figure out where it's actually going to be applied. But I definitely want to come back to the kind of market analysis, because there's some really good kind of threads to pull on there. But let's definitely tell us about the conference. You've alluded to it already. I mentioned it at the beginning. Last year it was, and for the previous number of years, it's been the Voice
5 years,
Summit.
yeah.
Was it as the
Mm-hmm.
Voice Summit 5 years old?
Yep.
I've had the pleasure of finally making it there last year, and
Yeah.
you invited us along to do our own stage and run our own track, which was tremendously successful. So we'll definitely be back there this year doing the same thing. The 4 years prior, every single year I was trying to go, something happened. First year I had a baby. Second year was my brother-in-law's wedding. Third year was like just coming out of lockdown or whatever. Like every single
Yep.
time, a reason for that,
Right.
like a barrier. But that last year was immense. This year I'm really looking forward to. But tell us about the logic behind the reposition. So for those,
Yeah.
lots of people tuning in will know about the Voice Summit. There's probably some people who don't know about the Voice Summit. So tell us about kind of like the ethos of the event and why it's now the Voice and AI Summit.
Yeah, I think thank you so much, Kane. And it was I'm so glad you finally got there last year. And yes, life happens. We can't always get to conferences, and it was great to have you all. And we're excited to have the UX World back this year. You're tremendous partners, and hats off to you as well on launching Unparsed, which looks like a fabulous event at the end of July. So we definitely want to get a shout out to you all for doing that event and focusing on the conversation designers. So yeah, Voice started as an exploration around the conversational interface of the assistants that were now growing at light speed back in 2017, 2018, 2019. Whether that's an in-home assistant or an assistant in a car or assistant on a phone or on a laptop, it was sort of the boom time, and there was a need to really understand and explore that interface. As the markets evolved, that voice interface is one piece of the market, and underneath the covers is machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science, all these other things that are happening to make it possible. So there's a large ecosystem around the conversational experience, and we were already catering to that ecosystem, but we really wanted to make that point that this was an AI conference that dealt with that intersection between conversational AI, generative AI, machine learning, data science, and all the things that relate to that. So it's an interesting time, and we wanted to make sure that we reflect that. It's actually worked out quite well for us. The mix of partners is more unique this year than it has been, sort of playing to that. So GitHub is sponsoring this year, and GitHub hadn't sponsored in previous years. We also just landed our friends at Microsoft, and we're excited about that. But for the attendees, it's an opportunity to explore the stack of how do you build a conversational interface, and how do you leverage GPT and the APIs or the open source platforms that are proliferating so quickly, whether it's LangChain or Hugging Face or Tortoise TTS. There's just so much happening on the open source side. So we wanted to make sure that our conference reflects where the market is, and what you need to be doing in order to actually effectively get into the market. And that's, you have to build a full stack, right? The conversational piece is one layer.
Yeah, and it's getting more and more complex as well. Like you've got all of the sort of like the platforms that the platforms that began to be created around messaging Facebook Messenger, chatbots, like
Right.
those first generation chatbot platforms,
Right.
they had to pivot to voice, you know, because
Yep.
inevitably people were talking about Alexa and then it's contact center, and so people start pivoting into voice. Those that were kind of like Alexa-based platforms that were created off the back of Alexa have had to move from sort of like voice to chat, and also to incorporate their own elements of voice, because Alexa didn't really give you any information or data to as to what was actually going on with your language model or your speech recognition.
Right.
And so the market has kind of pivoted in a few different directions, and a lot of the companies that have been involved in trying to build companies have had to respond to, differences in technology and differences in changes in customer behavior. Whereas
Hmm.
now it seems, because the raw technology is so powerful, you don't have to build your own proprietary NLU system. That's not a differentiator anymore. That's just a commodity. And the large
That's
language
right.
models are getting themselves into a position where they are going to very quickly become a commodity. OpenAI announced like 2 weeks ago it's dropping the prices of all of its APIs, basically. So some of them have come down by 75%, others by 25%. The price is coming down. Microsoft's working on its own chips, which is essentially, according to the rumor, they are supposed to work in tandem with large language models to make processing and inference cheaper. So the price of this stuff is going to come down. And therefore, they are just accessible to everybody, and they're gonna become commoditized. And therefore, because of that raw power sitting there, you've then got, as you said, the lang chains, the auto GPTs, trying to fill kind of holes in the raw technology to make it ultimately useful. Plus you've got products that are being built on top of it, like the Jaspers and all that sort of stuff.
That's right.
So the platforms that are kind of have been there since the beginning, that have been providing enterprise grade technologies, they're also in the mix. And so now you've just got this kind of explosion of every person, seemingly every company, is either building a product, or there's an open source tool, or something's going. Every single time I open my emails, there's something else kind of going on. So it's a perfect time to be doing an event like this, because
Right.
you mentioned the hype cycle. Part of what we need to do as a community is come together. This is what VUX World's kind of ethos is, really, is trying to spot what's kind of hype and being blown out of proportion, what's bullshit,
Right.
where's the real true potential, and then what is it going to take to reach that potential? Because anyone can grab a language model and turn it into a sort of like Snapchat AI assistant that's going to have a flaky conversation with someone, or a Bing
Yep.
GPT, which is, I don't say anyone can build Bing GPT, but I mean like a version of that, which is, you know, not necessarily great at having conversations. But to turn that into something that's going to be sitting in a Mercedes vehicle, or to turn it into something that's going to be, running conversations or being used in a large enterprise like a bank or an insurance company, it's a different ball game. And so we kind of need these spaces to come together, share what we're learning, and figure out, how do we make this work for real.
When I think you're spot on. When I started doing this, in 2009, I started a meetup community. We had a small meetup with 12 people at a pizza shop, and we were talking about mobile development. That's where the name MoDev came from. And a woman came up to me after that 2-hour meetup, and she said, "I learned more sitting around this table in 2 hours than I've learned in the last 6 months online, trying to find out, what to do." Um, and that stuck with me, and literally I will always remember that conversation, because that's what happens at conferences. We spend our time online. We subscribe to digital newsletters, we write digital newsletters, right? We try to go through so much information, but when we do stop and we sit down and we talk to other people, man, that is just a magic. And I think that yeah, that's where the truth comes out, because you have those conversations. And so, my why at MoDev became, we believe human connection is vital in the era of digital transformation. That was like why we do what we do. And so because of that belief, we bring people together, and I've seen the power of this over and over and over again. And especially, coming off of COVID, and I know that, we've been coming off of COVID for a couple of years now. But I would say 2023 is really the first year that I've gone to, I've been to other events, and it just sort of feels like that's behind us now. But people have definitely changed their behaviors with regards to getting out. My encouragement to folks is to get out, whether it's our conference, your conference, or other conferences. Get out, start reconnecting with people. I do believe we've been in a bit of a crisis of isolation, because we become so accustomed to being home and maybe not getting out or not going to things. And as I've challenged myself and pushed myself, it really makes a difference. And especially now, as you mentioned, the changes in this market, and it is more important than ever, more vital than ever for people to get back together. So I will say this, if you're out there and you're listening, and you want to attend our conference, we do have scholarships. If it's something that you don't have budget for, we want to make sure the event is accessible to everybody. So we have a scholarship page. Definitely, please apply. And we also, we have an expo only pass that's really affordable for folks that just want to come and meet the people that are shaping this industry, and hang out in the expo hall with us. We would love to see you there. But I think importantly, we offer, the conference offers a ton of content. We do an open call for proposals. We get speakers from around the world, and they're vetted by a committee, and they're selected. So the content is outstanding if you're trying to learn and get ahead of this market. That's what I love to provide, and that's what makes it fun for us as people come. And I hear the stories after the event of how we help change someone's life, whether they learned something, got a job, met a co-founder. It's always great to hear those stories, and you're going to get those stories too soon, Kane, from Unparsed as well.
Oh, indeed. And we had those stories from the last event in October. Yeah. It was absolutely fantastic. Probably might lay off the booze on the after party this time, because that was that was a story I'm still getting over. But yeah, no.
Anything a little like Jack Grealish, maybe.
Yeah, kind of. I did see something from there where I think ours was maybe a little bit worse. We nearly got abducted by a bunch of shady-looking characters to take us to a casino, which I found out the day after from somebody at the conference that there is no casino anywhere near Arlington. So it's a good job we didn't get in that van, because we might not have come back.
Yeah, it's quite a drive. It is quite a drive from there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it was really good. It was fantastic. And so what's the plan for this event? It's September 5th to the 9th. Is that right? 5th to the 8th?
5th through 7th. Yeah, 5th, 6th, 7th. 3 days. And our format stays the same as previous years. We usually do a move-in day on the 5th, but it's also pre-conference workshops. We've got OpenAI leading a deep dive workshop on data training for OpenAI, which is fantastic. I mean, come meet in person with OpenAI team members and get hands-on training on OpenAI. That's I think we're one of the very few conferences that's offering that. The AWS team is also going to lead a LangChain workshop, so an open source workshop on LangChain, and there's a few other really valuable pre-conference workshops that day. We have a welcome reception that evening in our exhibit hall for folks to come and just for speakers and sponsors that are already on site and attendees. Come hang out, let's say hello. And then the main event is the 6th and 7th. And we have an isolated keynote and panel morning in the mornings with some fabulous keynote speakers in the morning on both mornings. And then we have the illustrious VUX World happening on one of our additional stages. Just as you did last year, you bring such great partners and content, Kane. But we have several other breakout rooms going as well. So hands-on classrooms for learning APIs, open source tools, strategy, executive strategy roundtables. So lots of breakouts on both days as well. And then our exhibit hall, where you get a chance to meet the companies that are shaping the future of conversational and generative AI. So we bring the thought leadership content. We also bring the breakout content for everybody. And like I said, there's something for everybody, whether you're a developer, designer, conversation designer, product leader, technology leader, strategist, marketer. Those are all the things around, that tech stacks and products that's changing dramatically right now. So I think it's an opportunity for the team to come and get a solid 360-degree view of the industry.
Nice, perfect. Yeah, it's going to be immense. And for those who are who haven't been yet, it is the program is great. Obviously, the VUX World Track is something to behold. Which so this year, last year we focused. So for people that know us, obviously, you know that our kind of focus is on how can we implement, or how can you implement conversational AI successfully in the enterprise? That's fundamentally what we're kind of all about.
Right.
And so last year we had some fantastic case studies from a whole bunch of companies. Florida Blue, we had Landry's Hospitality. We had a whole bunch of really great case studies. This year is going to be exactly the same. Only this year we want to try, as I said before, we want to try and pull us through that hype cycle when it comes to generative AI and large language models. And so,
Yeah.
still with the same lens, how do you apply successfully large language models and generative AI in the enterprise? What are the use cases? Who's doing what with it? Bringing companies in there that are trying to deploy this kind of stuff and that are deploying this kind of stuff. And really, the session for us is as much about best practice as it is about learning, and figuring out together where the gaps are and what kind of steps need to be taken to make this stuff ready to go. Because, I was talking to someone yesterday who are building or trying to build an application, which is essentially going to have the goal. I can't share too much about it, but the goal is essentially like a user will be having a conversation with an assistant for over an hour. And it's like, and the philosophy is that, the language model is going to manage the entire thing. And it's kind of like, that seems a very kind of tough task, to be
Right.
able to manage the context of a conversation for an hour with very long form responses, and to be able to keep the context for the whole time is going to be an absolute nightmare. And so it's things like that. Like, if we're going to take this technology and make it and apply it in really kind of like useful, important situations, what tools do we need? What guardrails do we need? What quality control do we need? What techniques and stuff can we apply to this technology? And if you take the raw tools, what else do you need to do to make it work? And so, definitely, I'm really looking forward to putting that program together as we are doing. And it's going to be an immense time.
Yeah, it is. And just I think that if you're following the news and who's really shaping this market, you're going to meet the folks from companies like OpenAI, from NVIDIA, Perplexity, Microsoft, Walmart, Salesforce, Capital One, Google, Roche, AWS, General Motors. They're all speaking and participating actively in the conference. And this is a chance to really kind of understand, where's the state of market, what people are doing. And I got to give a big shout out to our partners. I think Veritone has just been a great leader of this community and in this space in the last few years, and they've risen to the top of the event the last couple of years, and they're joined this year by our friends at Core and Core AI. And I love that during the keynote NVIDIA, that Jensen's keynote, that he mentioned Core by name. I thought that was a really, really cool thing. But and then we've got new partners joining us this year, like Amelia. We're so stoked to have them along. People coming back like Poly and Cognigy and Reed Speaker coming back for another year. And then we've added some new ones too. So with Veil and Unique, Variant and GitHub. And it's just really like, to me, it's just like, it's wonderful to have these just, really, really leading companies come and join the conference and be a part of the growth of this industry, and kind of a part of almost the rebirth of conversational AI. Because now I'd say, Kane, one thing that's different from this year than last year is I do feel like last year conversational AI was still kind of a nice to have. A lot of companies were getting into it, right? But it wasn't, sometimes it wasn't the highest priority on the list. Now it's actually a must have. Everybody must understand conversational AI. They must be conversant in it. And I think that's a big difference between, that last year and this year.
Yeah. I think the other kind of, not necessarily difference, but it goes through phases, doesn't it? The market, where like you have, so the Alexa sort of thing was an interesting observation, because you had a lot of companies that were experimenting. There was no one really that made Amazon Alexa a real core part of their strategy in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't a part of the marketing strategy in a real fundamental way. It wasn't a part of their business strategy or customer engagement strategy in a fundamental way. It was all very experimental. And, the conversations that we were having back then was this could be really imperative and
Right.
business as usual, mission critical channel. Obviously, it didn't get there, but it still went through that sort of innovation, exploration kind of phase. And the same thing kind of happened and is still happening in the enterprise, where if you don't have an assistant up and running yet, or if you haven't got automation in your contact center or whatever, the first thing to do is to experiment. Is it feasible? Can this use case actually be delivered? Can we design a successful conversation? Can we plumb it into our line of business systems? Can we get a successful resolution rate on the conversation? So it's still, when people are getting started, it's still kind of exploratory, but at least the technology has been proven out there. There's enough kind of examples of deployments that are successful that gives the business the confidence to say, we know that we can kind of get some value here. With large language models and generative AI, we've almost gone kind of back a step a little bit. I know of a couple of companies who were lining up to pull the trigger on conversational AI, and then large language models have kind of hit the mainstream, and now they're like, don't know, what are we going to do about this kind of thing? So then things have paused. And so on the one hand, some things have paused. On the other hand, it's at the beginning of experimentation again. Because if you speak to anyone who's kind of working with large language models, either on the tooling side or on the enterprise side, if you find somebody that will tell you that they're more than happy for large language models to be on the front end of a customer conversation in a mission critical use case that's kind of of critical importance and high consequences, like activating a bank card or making a change of address or taking out a new mortgage, whatever those kind of things are, they will tell you not to touch it with a barge pole. So rightly so, there's experimentation going on, but it's an interesting sort of time to be, because for companies like us, that's great because we get to experiment with new technology, we get to work with companies that are trying to prove the value. But from a sort of business impact and kind of global impact of conversational AI, it's almost like taking a step back to take a step forward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's why I think at the top of the call I said we're kind of in this what do we do now phase of the market, and that pause is also coupled with some urgency, feeling like, well, we really need to figure this out. How disruptive is this going to be to our business? If somebody does this implementation well and they're a competitor, are we going to lose customers to that competitor? That's balanced with, you're right, the risk. There is an AI hall of shame, right? And there's been many well-publicized, challenges related to large language model implementations across, various industries. But that's where the market also is innovating, and I believe that those guardrails are more important than ever, and I think that's a piece of this market as well. We really haven't talked about the policy side of this and the need for really good sound policies in the market, and that's going to be a part of the conversation at Voice and AI as well. We're here in Washington, D.C., so we happen to have a very large community of folks that are very, very involved and integrated into the policy and regulatory frameworks that are being discussed right now. So and I want to encourage everybody to be a part of that conversation if you can. I know Open Voice Network is doing some great work around it. There are other organizations, actonline.org is taking a lead in this area, the ITIC.org as well. So the standards bodies. But take a look out there, and it's a time to get involved. It's time to have your voice heard and help shape this market in a healthy way that drives innovation, but also recognizes that we have challenges to overcome when it comes to artificial intelligence and generative AI, certainly.
Are you of the mindset that AI will kind of there's two mindsets. There's a kind of dystopian and a utopian one, isn't there? So the dystopian view of Mo Gaudat and a few others is kind of AI is super dangerous. It has the potential to destroy us all if we don't act fast, and we're already behind. The other more utopian view, like Andrew Ng and Yan LeCun and people like that, which is this is actually, fundamentally it's just a pattern matching system and a prediction model, and what's the worst that can happen? Really, it's just a tool, and we can use the tool to be more productive, and if we can be more productive, we'll create more opportunities for everyone, and the world will be a better place.
I tend to be more of an optimist. I tend to, I think Satya Nadella at Microsoft has done a great job, and I think that uh, he's leading the company. They're all in on AI and building more quality tools that we can use in our work every day. I think that look, social media has been hugely challenging, I think, for global societies. I think it's, we're here in America, you're in Europe, but we look, it's really had a negative impact in many ways. I think it's responsible too for this kind of global mental health crisis that we're going through. I think social media, I've had to curtail my own social media use just to make sure that I'm, just be able to stay focused on the things that are most important to me. Social media is artificial intelligence. That's what's behind social media. And so I do tend to be an optimist, but I don't think we've even gotten social media right yet. I mean, there's still a lot of challenges, and there's an opportunity to have social media do the good things that we want it to do and connect us with others and share interesting information without flooding us and without it manipulating us and without doing the things that, like I've got kids that are 11 and 12 that are very, very sensitive, fragile age for social media. So my wife and I are very hyper vigilant about it. I bring that up just because I think AI is the AI that's behind social media is coming right face to face with us, where we're having conversations now with these algorithms that don't always have our best interest at heart. And I do think so. I do tend to be more of an optimist that I think that we'll better deal with this now, knowing the challenges that we face with social media. But it's going to be challenging, and it's not going to be easy. And there are going to be a lot of bumps in the road. But I do look, I'm a believer in technology and technology making the world, making our work maybe more enjoyable, making our lives more enjoyable. But I love to get out in the woods without technology. So I think it's going to be a balance, Kane. I really do. I think it's going to be a balance. And I'm not the dystopian believer. I wouldn't call it utopian, but I do think that as human beings, I think we're going to figure it out. We've historically gotten it righter than not over time, and I'm going to believe that we're going to continue to do that.
I think so. I mean, if you look at over the course of time, there's always been kind of like grunt work to be done, hasn't there? If you can even go as far back as you want to go back, some people were slaves. And I'm not talking about the kind of African American slavery in more recent times. That's obviously bad enough. But generally speaking, throughout the hundreds and thousands of years of human existence, there have been people whose primary existence has just been to serve others, doing menial tasks that no one really wants to do, whatever those tasks might be, And then with every technology innovation and advancement of society, we kind of break through those kind of barriers and we sort of raise the kind of living standards, if you like. And then, as we do that, that new technology and the new sort of living standards have activities that need to be done. And people do those activities and they get paid to do it in some way, shape, or form. Some people have on the kind of bottom end of the income scale jobs that they would probably prefer not to do, and so forth. And so I kind of just view it as it's part of a natural cycle which we've always gone through, from the introduction first of, I don't know, horse and cart, sounds stupid, but before then people were walking everywhere. And it had been people whose jobs it was, or people who were tasked with walking miles and miles and miles to deliver a message to someone or something daft like that. Or if you go back to we learn how to attach letters to a homing pigeon and send that, and there have been people whose job it is to look after homing pigeons and to create, this kind of like facility for someone to send a message using the pigeon. That they don't exist anymore because automobiles or whatever have kind of replaced that. So you always kind of advance, and although there's concern obviously for job losses, and I think the bigger concern in this moment in time is the exponential kind of increase of capability that these tools provide in such a short space of time. It's having the time to adjust. I think that's the bigger issue, because we still have jobs today and roles today that if you were to ask a 15-year-old or 12-year-old person, what do you want to do when you grow up? They certainly won't answer the kind of jobs that some people do to make a living and to earn a crust and stuff like that. And some people may enjoy doing that. 110% jobs like contact center jobs are really, really fulfilling jobs, and actually very difficult jobs, because you need to know a lot about the business. You need to be able to use multiple different business systems. You need to be able to understand people and talk to people, have
Yep.
empathy and all this kind of stuff. So but it's kind of like, I just see it as progress happens anyway. We do adapt to progress, and there will be other opportunities that get created that we don't even know of yet. And it's not even job
Right.
losses we're talking about here. I'm just talking about not the losses that potentially might see, but the opportunity that's in front of us. If you look at IKEA, perfect example. They automated for the last 2 years contact center conversations. So, trying to kind of improve self-service, and rather than waiting on hold and all kind of stuff, you can kind of get loads of stuff done with I think it's called Barry or something like that. And so the contact center agents that were handling those phone calls, they've retrained them all to be interior designers, and they're now charging
Right.
their time out $25 an hour, £25 an
Right.
hour. So
No, it's amazing.
they've given people kind of revenue producing roles, and I think that's what we're going to see more of. We're going to see more opportunity created, and for
Yeah.
example, IKEA's contact center, the people who are now in new jobs, maybe getting paid more, possibly more fulfilling, being allowed to be more creative, a bit more autonomy. Like, for those people, they're not going to reminisce and miss the old job. And it's not going to be
Mhm.
that jobs have been lost. Actually, it's jobs have been created and more revenue is being created. So I think we're going to see more things like that happen if you do it properly.
Yeah, no, I think IKEA is a great example. I think about grocery stores as well, where you've got automated, you got self-service checkout, right? So people are saying, well, now the checkers are going to lose their jobs. Well, the checkers are moving into the stores and actually helping people shop and spend more money. So they're becoming more effective, moving into the closer to where the decisions are being made. And I think what you're going to see is the major brands putting moving, actually paying more and having those people help move their products, at decision time. So then the labor moves into the store and becomes more valuable. I think that's so the IKEA example I love. I think there's going to be a lot of examples like that. I was talking to a major bank recently, and they said, look, if we can just automate 5% of our calls in our contact centers, that would be a huge, huge ROI for us. And so I think that, this is not, and they said, look, if we just go 5%, so it's, there's still 95% of their contact center workers are probably going to be doing their job where, they're going to offload, some of it. But they said, we're not going to offload all of our contact centers anytime soon. We're trying to,
They've probably got a 10 to 20% abandonment rate anyway. So they're probably
right,
not even answering the total sum of calls coming into the business.
right.
That's kind of the thing. It's like all of this sort of like, fair enough. In the long term, it is definitely more of a concern about the fact that it could be a kind of more dystopian kind of future. But the reality is that most contact centers, for example, that's the area where most people are kind of concerned about today. Most contact centers are not answering all the calls that they have coming in,
Yeah.
and a lot of them have wait times that are just through the roof. So, what do you want to do about that? Do you want to just leave that as it is now and just leave it like that
Yeah.
forever? Or do you want
Right.
to actually sort that out so that you can actually serve customers and make people's lives easier and help people save time and stuff like that? It's actually making your staff's lives easier. And then
Right.
over time, which will be a slow burner, I don't think this stuff's going to happen. Although the technology is moving fast, it's not going to happen in the blink of an eye. Over time, as more and more things become more automated, slowly but surely and steadily over time, you'll find areas like IKEA have found, where you're able to kind of create better opportunities and better paid jobs for people that are doing things that they would rather do. So I'm definitely more kind of on the optimistic side. I do think that there is a concern about the tools being put into the wrong hands. That's the kind
Yes.
of big concern for me, is like, could this technology be used somehow to create specific marketing content using very specific targeting through the power of the social media targeting tools that exist on Facebook and the like, to start swaying people's opinions in one way or another. Because
Yeah.
for those who are bad actors, they're bad actors anyway, and this just
Yeah.
kind of fuels the ability to do more damage with more breadth. So that's kind of the bigger concern for me, is kind of like people using it kind of like towards a kind of ill end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think that that's in a lot of talk about democracy and the threat, I think, to democracy. Also, we haven't talked about China. I think China is, they're all in on AI, and they're moving at light speed as a country as well. So, there's there's a lot of challenges on the horizon, and I think that's where the policies really have to come in quickly, and synthetic content needs to be labeled as synthetic. I think that there's a whole market for authentication and being able to tell whether something's real or fake, because we're going to need it. The images up to now have been, you can tell if you look. That's just about, we're almost even through that, right? Where images are getting better and better. All the fingers are there. So yeah, Kane, I think you're right. I think that, I think we haven't gotten it perfect by any stretch in the past. And so I think it's up, it's tough to say it's up to the platform companies to help, but hopefully there's some help on the horizon from the platform side. But I certainly think the industry needs to come together on this. Regulations need to happen. A lot of opportunity to build a lot of really cool things and have some fun, entertainment. But yeah, it's not without its challenges. And I'm excited for the event. I'm excited to meet a lot of new people that are coming into this industry. And again, we've got people coming from around the world. The event is September 5th through 7th in Washington, D.C. Just a quick reminder. And you can find it at voiceand.ai. Thanks, Kane, for putting the link down there. Yeah. So Kane, I'm excited to see you. Excited to see you back in Washington, D.C. Got you here twice within a year. That's pretty good. That's pretty good stats as far as I'm concerned.
That is very good going. Yeah. That'll be the so before that, I'd only been to the US once, and by the time I returned from there, I'd have been 3 times in the last year. It's crazy. It's all going on. But I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, there you are. The US is having some sort of effect on me,
Hey man, I'm here to bring people together. That's my calling. So I look forward to getting all the human beings together, and yeah, we got to connect on this stuff. It's a fascinating time, and it'll be fun to see the outcomes of the conference, and we'll have a visit afterwards and compare notes.
Definitely. Nice one. Well, as Pete said, boys and girls, you can go to voiceand.ai. The website is there. You can get your tickets there. All the types of tickets that Peter mentioned, lots of ways to get involved. If you're planning your trip, there's lots of people that come from all over the world to go there. And, Washington is fantastic. We ended up having a little trip there last year when we went there. It's absolutely brilliant, loads of stuff to do. So if you are coming from Europe like I am, then, what I tend to try and do is try and come a bit early, stay a bit later. New York's not too far away, so you can mix work and pleasure, which is always the best combination. Yeah. So
a lot to see in DC. A lot to see in DC. It'll be a nice time of year. September is a great time of year in Washington. And I would give a shout out to the hotel. The Washington Hilton is a fabulous property. We have a great rate. You won't beat it in downtown DC, especially for a high quality hotel. So you can register through the or click the link for that special rate through the website as well. So definitely get yourselves to DC. If you're in DC, come on down to the Washington Hilton. It'd be great to see you.
Nice one. Pete, absolute pleasure. As always, thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you in September.
Kane, you're a huge asset for this industry. It's so great to be partnered with you again. And thanks for having me on. It's been great chatting with you.
No worries. And we'll see you all in Washington in September. Look forward to it. See you soon.